Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about a topic that is a little bit different, but I think it's an interesting topic that hasn't been discussed very often. And the title of my video is going to be Magic, Gender and the Qabalah. And I wanted to talk a little bit about magic, and I wanted to talk about gender as well in regard to magic and in regard to Qabalah. So I think the best way to start this topic is to talk about the two major arcana cards that normally or usually represent magic. And of course, the most obvious one is the Magician. And this card normally represents magic, and I understand and I actually agree with this representation, because with the Golden Dawn associations this card is connected with the planet Mercury, and the god Mercury was seen as the god of magic amongst other things, and also the Egyptian god Thoth, who is the Egyptian form of the Greek god Mercury. So this is the usual card of the major arcana that is associated with magic, and I also associate this card with the Golden Dawn. And for me personally, my idea of magic and my regard for magic is more to do with the Magician card. I would personally identify my attitude and Qabalah practice with the Magician. So for me, the Magician card represents magic in general, and for me personally, and also in regard to Qabalah and the Golden Dawn. So that's the card that's usually associated with magic. And by the way, I'm showing cards from the Universal Tarot. This is the large size professional edition from a number of years ago, and there is a different version published by Los Scarabeo now, and this was created by Roberto DeAngelis. Now, the other card that's associated with magic is the High Priestess, and the Golden Dawn Association has this card linked with the moon. And this type of magic, being the High Priestess, is usually in connection with witchcraft, and I can see that association as well. And I also see the High Priestess as the guardian of esoteric knowledge and the holder of the Akashic records. So I can see this association as well. For me personally, this card has more to do with esoteric knowledge. So, but I can also see the usual association with witchcraft with this card because of the moon, the lunar association. So the reason why I'm mentioning these two cards to begin with is because if this card is usually associated with witchcraft, I want to just talk a little bit more about the Magician card being ruled by the planet Mercury. The planet Mercury and the god Mercury, it's a very androgynous, and it's got an androgynous association and even a hermaphrodite association. So I see this card as being I see the magician as being a bit of a non-binary figure as well. So that might be another reason why I identify more as far as Magick and Qabalah. I identify more with the magician. I know a lot of people may see the magician as solely as a male archetype, a male type of figure, but what I know about the planet Mercury, it's quite androgynous, and it is associated with the hermaphrodite as well. So I see this more in a non-binary way. And I wanted to bring up this topic today because, talking about gender in this regard, because I think there is still some stereotype in metaphysical circles about magicians always being male or usually being male. And I think that stereotype is not quite true. It's not quite true now, but I also think it never really has been, and I'll tell you why. I'll go into that a little bit. But I think there is a general stereotype idea that magicians are always or usually male, in the same way that witchcraft or witches are usually or only female. And I'm going to talk about some examples of this as well. So I think it's a topic that's quite important to bring up, and especially to bring up these days in contemporary times when there is less stereotype in regard to gender now. And I think this encourages more acceptance if the stereotyped ideas of gender can be opened up and looked in a broader way. I mean, especially in regard to metaphysics, because in society in general, the ideas about gender have changed a lot. And I think it's really interesting that some of these old stereotypes can still be in metaphysical circles and topics. And when I talk about this in regard to magicians and things like that, if I talk about the Golden Dawn, for example, I've just got the cover page here of the Qabalah book written by Samuel Mathers, and this was written in 1887. This is just the cover page of the book. This was translated from the original Latin, a much earlier version. And Samuel Mathers was one of the founders of the Golden Dawn. So this book on the Qabalah was one of the founding books that the Golden Dawn was based on. So the Qabalah Unveiled. And also the other book that he wrote, which is Book T, which either stands for the Tarot or the Book of Thoth. This is the cover page from that as well. Also the founding book by Samuel Mathers, written around about 1887, and so these are the first two books that the Golden Dawn was absolutely based on, and the Golden Dawn was officially founded in the following year in 1888. And the reason why I'm mentioning this is because one of the main stipulations that Samuel Mathers had when the Golden Dawn order was being formed was that this order, this magical order, had to be opened to both men and women who would be seen, considered as magicians on an equal standing. And that was quite unusual and even radical at the time. but because most of the orders at the time were Masonic lodges or Rosicrucian groups, and they were always male only. But Samuel Mathers emphasised that the only way he would have anything to do with this order was that it was absolutely open to both males and females equally as practicing magicians. So I wanted to mention that because I think that's a really important point to make. You know, if that was going on in, you know, the late 1800s, it really makes you think about how much things have changed since then, and in other ways the stereotypes are still around. Here is a case in point about what was going on with the Golden Dawn. Dion Fortune. Dion Fortune was the magical name of a female magician member of the Golden Dawn. Dion Fortune, the magical name of Violet Firth, and I have spoken about this book and Dion Fortune before in other videos. I'll just show you a picture of her. And she later went on to found her own order of magic called the Society of Inner Light. And here is a photo of Dion Fortune, who was originally named Violet Firth. So she was a very important member of the Golden Dawn. And what I need to also mention as well is Dion Fortune was a member of one of the later Golden Dawn temples after the original Golden Dawn had disbanded. The original Golden Dawn disbanded around about 1900. It was founded in 1888, so it roughly ran about 12 years. And Dion Fortune belonged to one of the temple lodges after the disbanding of the Golden Dawn. She was actually born around the time, the later period of the Golden Dawn anyway, so it had already been disbanded by the time she joined. But the original Golden Dawn broke into 4 different temple lodges, each of the senior members going away to form their own temple lodges. And Dion Fortune belonged to one of those 4 temples, and then later went on to form her own order of magic. And I've talked about this book before in regard to Qabalah. It's more about spiritual development in regard to Qabalah. It is at least at the intermediate level. So it's not a beginner's book, and it is also Qabalah on the basis of spiritual concepts. So this isn't the usual type of magic book. This is not like a how-to book. And the other thing in regard to Qabalah that's important to mention is there are esoteric teachings about gender in regard to Qabalah itself. So this is why gender is quite an important topic in regard to magic and in regard to Qabalah. A lot of people may not realise that there are actual teachings, esoteric teachings in regard to gender associated with the Qabalah. So another case in point now about gender and magic. I've got a really good book here that I think a lot of people will know this author. The Temple of High Witchcraft by Christopher Penczak, and the subtitle is Ceremonies, Spheres and the Witch's Qabalah. This is a great book, very thick. Christopher Penczak has written many books. He's a favourite of mine because he is such a great author, and his books are just wonderful resources and how-to books as well. Christopher Penczak identifies as a witch. So the previous book I showed you was Dion Fortune, a female magician. Now I'm talking about Christopher Penczak, who is male and identifies as a witch. So I wanted to make that point that there are already people from over quite a period of time now who do not hold to these stereotypes of males always being magicians or females, witches always being female or magicians always being male. This is a great book all about Qabalah and magic, and it is magic in regard to Qabalah. And if you'll notice, it's Qabalah spelt with a Q, which is to do with the Hermetic Qabalah of the Golden Dawn, because that's the only Qabalah that I talk about. And the same thing with the Dion Fortune book that I just showed you, that is also spelling Qabalah with a Q. The original book by Samuel Mathers for the founding of the Golden Dawn did spell Qabalah with a K, but it was changed to Q, spelling it with a Q, a little bit later on during the time of the Golden Dawn, when they decided that spelling Qabalah with a Q identified it as Hermetic Qabalah, and spelling it with a K identifies it more as Jewish Qabalah. So this book I would recommend. I think it's a really great, in a way it's a beginner's book as well, because it starts with a really good introduction and takes you all the way through the structure of the Qabalah, the associations in regard to the Qabalah. Most of them are based on the Golden Dawn, but some of them are also Christopher Penczak's own associations, but he does include the Golden Dawn as well with the correspondences. So that's important, because you need to at least see and know the Golden Dawn correspondences, and to include his own as well is a good idea as well. And in the introduction in this book, Christopher Penczak does talk about the very thing that I wanted to talk about with the Magician card and the High Priestess card. And he is kind of making a point of mentioning that he didn't completely see the High Priestess being associated with witchcraft, because for him, he sees witchcraft because it is to do with magic, and for him it's not just Wiccan magic. He is interested and practices a wide range of magic. So he at least partly identifies with the magician as well, even though he identifies as a witch. And this is a great book. It has lots of information. It really has everything. It has path working on the Qabalah, path working for the Qabalah. It goes through, there's a chapter on each of the 10 Sephirah. There are lots and lots of diagrams and drawings. There's a great bibliography at the back of the book. There is, I think, yes, there's an index as well, which is a great idea. And so he mainly talks about, he talks about dividing the chapters. All of the chapters are in regard to each of the 10 Sephirah. And he's got many appendices at the back as well. And there's exercises for those who want to do them. So you could go into this as far as you want, or as general and basic as you want. And he starts with Qabalah basics, and then the chapters, he actually calls them lessons for each of the Sephirah. So it's such a great book, and it's also a reference book as well. And he also mentions the corresponding tarot cards as well. But this is more about Qabalah, but he does include tarot cards for the correspondences. And there's lots in here, and as I was saying, you could really start with the beginning and basics of the book, and you can just keep the book as a reference if you wish. And you know, having path working in here as well is also a great idea. So yes, I'm recommending this book, The Temple of High Witchcraft. I suppose the only thing I want to add as I finish this video is the idea of high and low magic. Now, I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding about high and low magic. High magic or high witchcraft, it's usually called high magic really. High magic is to do with ceremonial magic. I know that there is ceremonial ritual with Wicca, so that is included in Wicca, but high magic generally refers to ceremonial magic, which is the type of magic that the Golden Dawn practiced. And this is based on the Golden Dawn ideas of Qabalah in regard to magic. Low magic is more to do with folk magic that a lot of witches practice who do not identify as Wiccans. So folk magic is traditional magic, and it's more like what they refer to as low magic. Low magic doesn't mean that it's any less or there's no differences in the value of the two different types of magic. It's just that they approach magic in different ways. There is this really false idea that went around a long while ago that low magic means evil or satanic magic. It doesn't really mean that. It doesn't really mean that. That's got something else to do with what's called the right hand or left hand path of magic. That's different again. So I wanted to talk about this idea of high or low magic as well, because the title of the book is The Temple of High Witchcraft. Just before I finish, another book of Christopher Penczak's that I quite like, which is a more basic book. I don't think this includes Qabalah, but it is a great book, Instant Magic by Christopher Penczak. This is quite a handy book for someone who wants basics about magic, a practical book about magic. And instant magic means a quicker way of doing things rather than long drawn out methods. So this is a great book. I'm pretty sure this would still be in print. I'm just having a look also at some other things that are included in this book, but it's a great book. there's a lot of there's some charts in here at the back of the book, but I think it's a really good book. It's a bit of a how-to book, and it's also the basics of magic, which I think is a great idea to get a good understanding of these things in regards to magic for people who want to look into magic for the first time, or to get a better understanding in case they are interested in practicing magic. So, Instant Magic by Christopher Penczak. So, I wanted to talk about these topics today: magic, gender, and Kabbalah. And I was talking about Kabbalah in connection with magic and with gender. But I wanted to talk about these topics because I think they do need to be discussed more. I haven't made many videos about magic in particular, and I also wanted to talk about this in regard to gender because I think it is a topic that does need to be looked at. So I'll put the details about the books below the video. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.